Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of my weight loss journey. I'm calling this episode Becoming a Fat Burner, and you'll understand the reason for that in a little bit. Before I get back into the story, I just want to share something with you. I've got an upcoming business trip that I have to go on where I require me to go travel outside the country. And it was brought to my attention that my passport just expired, and so I'll need to update it. So yesterday I grabbed my passport. I travel maybe 2-3 times a year maximum outside the country. I grabbed my passport and opened it up and looked at the photo, and frankly, it was a little shocking. I didn't really recognize the person in that photo. And thumbed through some of the other pages and saw there's another photo in there from just 2 years ago when I was essentially at my maximum weight. It was a visa photo, and it's even a little more shocking. And so I took the current passport photo and made a little photo montage, and I'm going to share it with you just to show really what diet and exercise can do to your face, to your facial bulk. It's incredible. I'm certainly not showing this because I think I look great or anything. In fact, I never take a good picture, never have. I never look good in a photo. I don't know what goes on with my hair, but it's terrible. So in any case, without further ado, here's my photo montage. Yeah, so the one on the far left is from 10 years ago. And I was at pretty good weight. I don't know what I weighed then. It was probably in the order of 310, 320 pounds. Did look a little younger. You can see 10 years what it's done. The middle photo is only 2 years ago, right about exactly 2 years ago, and this was near my maximum weight, and that looks pretty bad. What I find amazing, and of course on the right is a photo that I just took yesterday, which it looks to me like I've aged quite a bit, but the reason I'm showing that is that I mean, you can see my ears. The middle photo, the ears are occluded by, the facial bulk, and all that stuff just melted away, and suddenly I got these ears now sticking out, and under the neck is completely gone now, and I got this thin neck. But anyway, I know I look older now, and again, I don't know what's going on with the hair, but I'm a much happier, healthier person in the current photo. A little shocking, right? Yeah, unbelievable. So anyway, back to the journey, becoming a fat burner. This phase of the journey for me was characterized by the main changes were mainly to exercise. I started really to take up running big time. In the last phase, I started dabbling in running and walking and then running, but I really started pushing it in this phase. I didn't change anything on diet. I continued with the same diet plan I was doing previously, which was to eat once a day. I kept that up, the same salad and vegetables and moderate amount of protein with some fruit. Kept that same formula. What I did do at a certain point is I started incorporating during the week a fasting day or 2 days. So in addition to just eating once a day, I started eating only, let's say, 6 days a week, or even many times 5 days a week. And I was doing this because of stuff I was reading on becoming a fat burner. Uh, Different places on the internet, I just was reading about fat burning metabolism and those pathways. I thought maybe if I combined fasting and running, that I could really train myself to become an excellent fat burner. And frankly, that was my goal. I wanted to be an excellent fat burner. I wanted to pretty much be always burning fat and to live in that mode. You might call it in ketosis or whatever, although I wasn't measuring ketosis, but I knew I was in it quite often given the type of food I was eating and the amount of fasting I was doing. But I also knew that historically I probably never was in a fat burning mode other than maybe a little bit when I was sleeping because I was always eating and always eating high carb food. So I wanted to start a new course, a new chapter in my life and move away from the past. So I thought maybe my body is going to need to be trained to be a fat burner. And so how do you train yourself? You practice it over and over and you push it. So this is what I did. I think now I'm going to bring up the overlay, the template of my weight loss journey and just describe it a little bit. I've showed this graphic 2 or 3 times already, so it should be familiar. So where we are now is in phase 4, and that was the date was May 3rd of this year is when that phase began. If you look at there in the little graphic, the little text box on the left, lower left, when I started phase 4, I had lost 135 pounds in the preceding 35 weeks, 3.8 pounds per week. So I'd lost a lot of weight already, just doing what I had been doing. But I think what I forgot to mention in a prior video is somewhere during the prior phase 3, somewhere along the way I was asked what my goal was. You know, how far was I going to take this? And I wasn't really too keen on setting goals, or hadn't been up until that point, because I was just going to ride it as long as it could go, and I didn't know how long it was going to go. And in fact, I often thought at any time I'm going to hit a brick wall and it's going to end, you know. But at some point I did set a goal, and my goal was to break the 180-pound barrier. And the reasoning for that was, I remember back in high school, I weighed in the 170s. And I thought, well, I would like to roll back my weight all the way to high school days, which for me, that's a 40-year rollback, and basically erase all of the weight I had gained in my adult life and go back to high school weight. I thought that was a pretty aggressive goal, but you know, why not shoot? Why not aim high? So here at the beginning of phase 4, my weight was 217 at that time. So I only had 37 pounds to go to get to this, to get to my goal, which at this point I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to probably be able to do this. So that goal is within reach. So again, if you look and follow the weight loss, this is my daily weigh-in, that graph. And what you'll notice, if you compare phase 3, the smoothness of the line compared to phase 4, you see phase 4 starts to get real jumpy, and there's a lot of noise in the graph. And that noise is when I started fasting during the week, one and even twice, 1 day or 2 days during the week. I started to develop, you know, a weekly signature that you'll see in the weight, where it would drop on the fasting days and it would climb right back up, drop, climb. So this added a lot of noise. Also, there was noise brought about by, I would tend to go out on a Sunday morning and do a long run. A long run to me meant anywhere from 8 to 13 miles. I mean, it turned into that. Originally it was 6 and then 8, and I was then doing pretty much consistently towards the end of phase 4. I was always running 8, 10, 11, 12, 13 miles. And I wanted to see the low weight, so I would weigh after my long run, which came pretty much after a day or two of fasting. So it was a super low weight. And I ended up I stopped doing that because I didn't want to see that kind of noise. But that's why the chart gets real shaky there. So this phase lasted in total 22 weeks, and I ended up at the end. You'll see that I did start breaking the 180-pound barrier right at the end. You'll see I started dipping below 1 week, and then the next week I dipped below again and again. As I was kind of straddling that barrier for a while, I didn't want to, tell myself that I was a success until I kind of plunged below the goal and remain there. And to me, that defines success. And finally, it was right around the 1st of October when I kind of broke through and then just kind of remained below. So this was the end of phase 4 is when I broke the 180-pound barrier, and I said, darn, I've done it. I've lost, I'm down to 180. I've lost half my body weight. And unbelievable. What do I do next? So yeah, I reached my goal, but I wanted to explain a little bit about, becoming a fat burner, because my running really improved. I started not with much fitness, but in time it improved. And I made it a point to always run. I was eating once a day. I would run before dinner, before I would eat. So I was running in a fasted state, probably, you'd look at it like 22 hours fasted, always with 22 hours fasted. And this period of time was May through September, so I was running through the hot part of the year in a fasted state, always. And then sometimes when I would fast on fasting days, I was running, more than 22 hours fast. I'd be running 40 and even up to 70 hours fasted. I always would run on fasted days. And I wanted to learn what it's like to exercise in the fasted mode and listen to my body. And in the beginning, I discovered very quickly that, I couldn't exert too much. I couldn't really press the pace and try to do intervals. I mean, I could, but it didn't last long. I had to retreat to a pedestrian pace quite, within an eighth of a mile. But in time, I got better and better. I could push it a little bit harder, and as I would run deeper into a fast, like I said, sometimes 48 hours or even up to 70 hours, I had to dial it back a little bit and just really stay with a moderate pace. I had to respect what my body was telling me. It was telling me that I couldn't push it too much. In the 3rd day of a fast, running in hot weather, this may sound a little extreme, and quite frankly, this was the most extreme part of my journey. I mean, running in fasted state through the summer, but it's where I learned a lot about myself. It's where I learned a lot about, it's where I gained a lot of fitness. This is where my face really started changing, my body started changing. I was losing weight, still at a pretty good pace, but my body was changing from the running and the fasted running. As time progressed, I did notice that I was getting better, and I think it's because I was becoming a better fat burner. The pace was picking up. I was able to run further. Uh, what I noticed, I mentioned before, I would do an early morning run on a Sunday morning. Um, I noticed, I mean, and these runs would be, I would always, long runs meant it had to be over an hour. So first it was like an hour and a half, and then 2 hours. I think one day the longest run I did was 3 hours. And these runs I would do, these long runs I would do, I wouldn't eat before them. It was always fasted running, and I wouldn't take any protein, or I would just have like a little half cup of water before I go out and start running. I didn't take anything during the run. What I found out is I'd reach a point, and it's somewhere, I don't know, roughly around an hour. It depends what I had in my system, but I think there was a certain point I would reach where I kind of burned through all available fuel that was stored on board, and then kind of switched over kind of fully into fat burning mode. And I began where I could kind of sense that transition. And it was kind of a neat feeling, because suddenly I felt I could run forever. I mean, it was just really, really smooth, really fluid. There was no stress. Again, as long as I stayed under a certain threshold, I couldn't try to max out at all. If I stayed under a threshold, I could just run and run and run and felt good if I respected the boundaries. And so I knew at that point I was burning fat, and I was becoming a successful fat burner, and this is what I wanted. I felt good at this point. Yeah, so now we're up to October of 2016, and this is kind of where let's say the pure weight loss part of my journey ended. I had been focused on weight loss as a main goal for the prior 14 months. And at that point, I had lost a little over 170 pounds and had reached my target weight goal. But of course, I wasn't ready just to, abandon everything and go back to my old life or whatever. No, I was actually at this point, I needed to kind of reassess, where do I go next? What do I do now? How do I eat? What's normal? And actually, it took me some adjusting. And I'll go into that a little bit in the next video, because there's definitely some adjusting. And I started a new phase, which is more an exploratory phase, and to kind of refine and improve fitness, but with weight loss, let's say, taking a back seat. So it's definitely a new chapter going forward next time. Anyway, thanks for everyone who's watching these videos and commenting and hitting likes, and to my subscribers. I'm enjoying it, and I don't know how much. I'll try to do maybe at least one a week. We'll see how long I can keep coming up with topics. I do have several ideas for specific focus points. I've glossed over a few things on fasting. I'm going to maybe down the road do one whole video on fasting, because I have some thoughts on it when I dive into the data that I've taken on my own fasting, and I'll share that down the road, also with running too. Anyway, thanks again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.